Well, so the first question is, why is it called Knee-volution? I love a pun, but that's not the reason why I called it Knee-volution. It's because there's a lot of old thinking and out of date views and methods when it comes to treating knee arthritis. For example, a mistake or a common misconception. Hello, hello, hello. We're just getting started, so don't worry, you're just on time. I was just saying, if you do have any questions, then you can fire away, ask them in the chat, or just ask out loud. So one of the really out of date thoughts and understandings about knee pain is that your joints wear out like a car, like a part in a car. So like the ball bearings kind of wear out in a car, and that's what happens with the knee joint when you have arthritis, which isn't exactly true. It's a much more biological process because your knee joint is a living being and a living organism, whereas a car is literally just materials, and they do effectively just wear out, basically. Normal healthy knees have a relatively firm, soft hyaline cartilage, which is about 1/4 of an inch thick. And as the cartilage starts to degenerate, this happens due to a biological process. So there's hundreds of chemicals in your knee joint that live in the synovial fluid, which help to nourish the knee joint. And we also can start to produce some chemicals which start to become toxic to cartilage, which then leads to degeneration and degradation of the cartilage. And then we have osteoarthritis and all of the symptoms that go along with it, basically. So that's a little bit about what arthritis is and some of the reason why I called it Knee-volution, because of the old thinking and the old practices which exist. And hopefully we can kind of bring everyone into the current way of thinking about arthritis today. Also, just a little bit about me. I run a physio practice in Tooting, which we help people with knee arthritis all day, every day, and have done since 2015. And I've been a physio for 9 years. Started off in sport, but then have moved, more in towards, less kind of professional athletes, more kind of people who just want to be active and healthy and be independent and as active as possible. So next I'm going to talk about Mary. Mary is one of my patients from earlier in the year. She's not called Mary, but just to give her a name. So she came to see me. I'm going to kind of talk to you about her story. She'd had a problem for 9 months where she'd had this knee pain that had come out of nowhere, and she came to her son, got in touch, and he said, my mum's in the queue for a knee operation. I don't think she really wants it, but we're about out of options. Can you see her? Can we get your opinion? And when I first saw her, she said she was feeling a bit stuck. She didn't really know what the best option was. She didn't really want surgery. She was feeling a bit fed up because not being able to do your normal activities like gardening for her put her in a bad mood. That also meant that her sleep wasn't as good because she wasn't burning off as much energy. Then her relationships were starting to be affected because she wasn't as in a good a mood. She was feeling skeptical about what the best option was, and her energy again was affected. So just this small bit of kind of just the knee symptoms had a real impact on the rest of her almost life, effectively. And what I asked her was, what have you tried up to this point? So she came in, she told me all about her knee pain. She said that it hadn't really come out of any particular trigger. It just slowly built up, and it was getting worse because it was quite cold at that time. And she said all I've been trying is resting it. And I would say this would be one of the first mistakes that people could make with this type of condition. When you have an acute injury, rest is needed to allow everything to settle. And there's a role for maybe 72 hours after an acute injury where there's lots of swelling to rest. But beyond that, what we know about osteoarthritis is that the more you move, the better the knee gets nourished. So the more lubricated the joint is, and the better the strength in the knee muscles is as well. So there is a role for rest when your pain is so bad that you really can't move very well. But beyond that phase, keeping active as much as possible is the best strategy, really. And even with running, this lady in particular wasn't a runner, but the other lady who I was going to talk about was a runner, and she was upset that she'd been told that she has arthritis, that she shouldn't run. But in actual fact, because we knew that the knee was perfectly, it wasn't unstable, and the pain that she was getting when she was running wasn't that severe. We knew that the benefits of running, which is lower body weight and better knee strength in the muscles that support her knee, the kind of net gain was far outweighed the risk of her overdoing it with the running, because of the effect of running on other comorbidities and keeping you healthy, and also keeping the knee healthy as well. So things like tennis, people feel like they have to stop playing certain sports, but it is just a case of finding out a way in which you can play in a maybe more moderated, sort of watered down way to start with, and then kind of building it up from there. Then the second potential mistake I would say that she made was seeing a surgeon without seeing a physio or seeing anyone else. So I've got a picture to show you, which is just a kind of funny one which I found on my phone. So often surgeons are very what's the word? Surgeon kind of they're very gung ho for surgery. So someone, this lady had come in to see the surgeon for the first time. She hadn't tried physio or changing anything, and his solution was to do a knee replacement. So, in reality, the risks for surgery and all the things that go with it, without trying anything before that, was potentially, could have been a bit of a mistake for her, because there's lots of other solutions, basically. Okay, screen sharing, cool. So, and the third mistake again would be, assuming, it's always good to get a second opinion, and get a collective view on your particular problem, even when it comes to surgery, when it comes to injections, when it comes to physio. Having, treating it with different people's opinions is definitely recommended, because if she had gone with that surgeon's recommendation, she would have had a knee replacement when she didn't actually need one in the end. And it wasn't that I sold her or forced her into anything. I just explained what the process of physio was, and she thought, actually, I'm happy to try that, because it means I don't have to go into, have a general anesthetic. I'm not only going to lose 3 months, and there's a chance that it's going to be better without surgery. And that was what happened, basically. So, whereas some people we've had that conversation with in the past, and they've said, I don't have the patience for physio. It's not worked for me in the past, and I just want to get this sorted. Or, I just want to take the quicker route, even though they will have physio after that type of operation. But that was kind of how we sort of talked to her about it. The other thing that she tried was exercises from the internet, and that was again why she was a little bit skeptical at the start. She thought that she tried 1 or 2 stretches and they didn't work, so therefore physio and exercise and rehabilitation just wouldn't work at all. Which it's a little bit like medication. It's like amitriptyline, at a certain dose, which is a medication, is a pain reliever. And then at a certain other dose where it's a much bigger dose, it's actually an antidepressant. So the same exercise done at, let's say, done for longer, done for a different amount of weight, or done more frequently, or done less frequently, can have a different effect. And as physios, we basically prescribe exercise based on what we find. For example, a squat might be appropriate for someone without any knee swelling, whereas something more mat-based might be better for someone with knee swelling, so we can kind of load the knee without too much pressure going through the joint. So when you do get exercises off the internet, they're not going to be tailored for your specific problem, and they may well help a little bit, but the other thing they're really lacking is a progressive nature as well. So a bit like if you're learning an instrument and something gets particularly easier, for example, like a scale, or you're learning a piece of music, if you just then stuck at that particular type of music, you would never get better. Whereas if things get harder, the pieces that you're playing become harder and harder, then you get a lot better as a player. And that's the same for the knee. The more loads that your knee can tolerate, and increase that, a physio can increase that over time, the more you can tolerate in day-to-day life as well. And that's what we see a lot of. We see a lot of people who've tried physio, but all they've done is done the same exercises and not really progressed anything. And that's potentially a big reason why people don't get better sometimes in physio as well. And the fifth thing she tried, which didn't work, and potentially again was a mistake, was overestimating what was possible in 3 weeks and underestimating what was possible in 3 months to 12 months. So if it wasn't, for her thinking was very short term. If I can't get it better in the next one session with you, then it's not going to work. And what she hadn't thought about was, in 3 months' time, if we do work hard at this, you're going to potentially be in a position where you feel more independent. You can get back to gardening, and once I broke that down, the process and the way in which we treat this type of thing, she started to see and change her view and change her expectations a little bit, which took a lot of stress and pressure off the situation. And also, when I talked about, that the research shows that in a year is how long it can sometimes take to get people better, it started to she started to come to terms with things and become a little bit less stressed as well, about how long it was going to take to change, basically. So there would be the 5 key mistakes which I would avoid with anyone who has the knee arthritis. The next thing I wanted to go through was some of the factors that can impact on knee arthritis. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see. So I'm going to go on the whiteboard, and we're going to go through the different factors that can affect this kind of diagnosis. So weight can be one, and if we're talking about the experience of pain as well, stress, exercise tolerance. Move this out of the way. Comorbidities. So I'll explain what I mean by that in a second, and then previous injuries. So these are some of the different factors that can impact on someone's experience of pain with osteoarthritis. For example, someone could have a very, very stressful period at work, and that can exacerbate their pain in their knee. That doesn't mean that the stress has caused the knee arthritis, but that's increased the level of experience of pain in that particular person. Potentially someone might be stressed because they can't exercise, and then that exercise, not being able to exercise, is then going to impact on their weight, and that's going to affect their comorbidities. So we start to see a chain reaction through the different aspects of someone's health because of their knee, basically. So what we tend to treat and tend to work with people on is what we call a keystone habit. So we change one thing, that has a knock-on effect on everything else. So with Mary, we got her exercise, we got her on an exercise bike, which made her less stressed and made her sleep better. This helped with her weight. She didn't necessarily lose masses of weight, but she started to feel a bit better she said she lost a little bit of weight because she'd gone from basically not being able to leave the house to now doing quite a bit of exercise on the exercise bike, which then led to her being able to go out and walk again and get back to her gardening. And then that impacted on her comorbidities, which were things like the risk of diabetes or other autoimmune problems as well. Previous injuries didn't really come into it because we couldn't really. She didn't actually have any previous injuries, but you can kind of see quite easily how one small change that we can make can impact on someone's experience of pain in their knee, basically. So let me come off this. So I'm going to share with you next my favorite exercise for knee pain. And I'm going to explain what it is specifically. So in the world of knee exercises, there's a type of exercise called an isometric exercise, which is basically where we hold the contraction. So for example, with my bicep, if I hold that position and almost resist against my other hands, that's what we call an isometric hold. So it's where the muscle's working, but it's not moving. So it's quite good for a knee which is irritated because it's not a massive amount of movement, but we're getting some tone and some switching on of some of the muscles which make a big difference to knee pain. So let me move this out of the way, and hopefully you don't mind my moustache as well. Another 4 days. So it's just really as simple as, and it's probably the most boring as well, but it does have the best effect. So I'm going to start with a pillow behind the knee, which is just quite a comfortable position for most knees. And we're going to straighten the knee and hold it there, tensing these muscles as hard as you comfortably can for 30 seconds. And that's it, basically. If you can hold it for a minute, that's perfect. And if you can do 3 in total, then I would expect that to help quite a bit, just with pain relief. And if you did it for 30 days, then it would definitely increase some of the strength in this muscle here, your quadriceps, which would help as well. But it is quite laborious because, again, it's not the most exhilarating exercise. Okay, so where is Mary at now? So she came in, she couldn't really leave the house. She wanted to be able to garden, and she wanted to be able to socialize by walking around the common. What we started off with Mary was the similar type of exercise that we talked about. We changed some of the Keystone Habits, so we got her doing a little bit of exercise. And towards the end of last summer, she was gardening her own garden. She was gardening her neighbor's garden, and she now knows how to keep her knee in check. She knows that when she does get pain, it's not a sign of damage, and she has a really good understanding of what her knee arthritis means, and she knows how to keep it in check. She's got her independence back. She's not relying on other people to help her, and she now has that ability to be active, and has a lot more energy, is sleeping a lot better, and has the confidence back in her body, so that she knows the limits and knows kind of what the knee can tolerate and what potentially the triggers are for her getting any exacerbations. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful, and I wanted to keep it quite concise and practical. So this will be a good time for any questions, and then I'll kind of talk to you a little bit about something else towards the end as well. So any questions which have come up after that? I'll just check the chat as well.
Hi, Ed, can you hear me?
Hello there. Hi there, Andrew. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. So I've got osteoarthritis, and I'm managing it with ibuprofen, all the usual stuff: paracetamol, rest, cold water swimming, Voltarol, and knee braces. But I wanted to know, can I manage the inflammation without the tablets, without the Voltarol? Can I reduce the swelling and the pain in my knee?
Yeah, it's a good question. If we were to really just hone in on that specifically, we know things that reduce the body, reduce the inflammation in the body, then There is some research to show that diet can be quite a big factor for that kind of thing. If we were to talk specifically about what could be causing the inflammation in the knee joint itself, then I would suspect there may be some structures which are getting too much pressure put through them, which is causing some of the swelling, which would be solved through getting the knee tolerating more and getting it stronger. Therefore, those structures have a little bit less pressure going through them. The other one would be compression. So, wearing tubie grip, which is almost like a sleeve that sits around the whole leg.
Yeah, I wear those.
Yeah. And I mean, there's obviously specific foods which sometimes people, and there is some research to show that vitamin D has anti-inflammatory properties.
Yeah.
Turmeric, kale, omega-3, and CBD as well, which has it helps with inflammation. It doesn't necessarily get rid of the swelling, but it would help with some of the symptoms. Yeah.
So I swim in the Lido,
Nice.
Lido, and it's freezing cold. It's 8 degrees.
Yeah.
And I get out of there, I can't feel anything, and the inflammation is gone. But it's only in the evening it'll return and wake me up at night. So the pain will wake me up, and I realize the side of my knee is feeling hot, inflamed, and swollen.
Hot, yeah. So it would be a case of figuring out some of the factors which I've talked about. Some of the dials and some of the things that would impact on why the knee is getting swollen like that, and honing in on whichever potential thing that is causing it, and treating that specifically, because there's quite a few different factors. The exercise tolerance side of things is quite a big one, and the level of the arthritis as well is another one, where we're kind of tuning into which structures in the knee are potentially irritated, or where the majority of the osteoarthritis is, and also other areas in the body as well. So how the rest of the mechanics and movement factors in your body are behaving, which may be causing the need to take too much pressure, basically. Okay. So, for example, sometimes someone's had an old hamstring strain, or has had some sciatica before, and then that means that the muscles at the front of the knee, the quadriceps, start to do all of the work because the hamstrings have switched off, and that can start to lead to too much pressure going through the knee joint, and that would be a case of figuring out kind of how do we get the hamstrings working better to make it so the quadriceps aren't doing all the work, so all the load isn't going into the knee, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. So I've made a few notes here: vitamin D, kale, turmeric. So that I can try these things. And the 30-second cushion strengthening thing, I definitely will try that.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a good bit of grit and persistence. But the dietary thing is well beyond my scope of practice as a physio. But I would say that there are going to be triggers and things that would make someone react and potentially affect the amount of inflammation in your body, which, for example, for some people, they have a reaction to gluten, and that causes almost like an autoimmune response and inflammation and things like that. Same with yeast. But that's well beyond my scope of practice, really. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. And another question that someone asked recently was I've got if my X-ray says that I've got osteoarthritis, then I might just basically going to need a knee replacement eventually. And what I would say in answer to that question would be, there's an old saying that the Australians say, which is treat the man, not the scan. And sometimes if you scan my knee, I think you'd probably find some arthritis after, a few different injuries. And sometimes the radiologist will write age-related changes seen in the joints. And those types of findings happen after the age of 25. So anyone over the age of 25, a radiologist will write age-related changes in the joint. But what we tune into a little bit more in physio is, when do you get the pain? When is the trigger? Is it climbing stairs? Is it kind of sitting for long periods? Is it walking? And then we look at you doing those things and try and get you doing those things better. And a lot of the time we get really good results. Sometimes people go for scans again and nothing's changed in the knee. It's still arthritic or still has age-related changes, but we've got the knee joint moving and functioning better, basically. And there's a really famous MRI finding where they showed someone with mild osteoarthritis with very small knee muscles who had lots of pain, and someone with really bad knee arthritis but with huge quadriceps, and they didn't have any knee pain at all, and they were running up until the age of like 72. So the saying "treat the man, not the scan" is something which we kind of tune into a lot in physio, definitely. Does anyone have any other questions at all? Cool. Okay, cool. Well, there is time to send me any messages with any questions you have. But yeah, the cold water swimming, though, I think that is a really, really good adjunct for this type of thing, for sure. So what I would like to share with you as well is something which we're going to launch in the new year, which is something we did before during lockdown, which actually worked really well. So it's almost like a hybrid between seeing a physio face-to-face and getting some one-to-one help from them, but also a digital arm where you basically don't have to leave your house and you join in on a 15-minute exercise class once a day with other people suffering with knee problems, knee pains, generally going to be a knee osteoarthritis population. Each week there's a different module of, giving you a better understanding of your injury with me, and it's almost harnessing a bit of a community of people going through the same thing, and giving you the ease of doing your exercises with a professional, i.e. me, to motivate you and to get you doing all the exercises correctly. But also for some people who want to come in for the one-to-one, maybe more hands-on treatment, then there's the option of doing that. So it's almost the luxury of getting almost like daily physio, but at quite a good, reasonable cost, basically. So that's something that I'll be able to talk to you more about in the next kind of week or so. But it's something we did in the first lockdown and worked really, really well. We had some really evangelical people who were really upset when we stopped it, because we basically had to go back to the normal face-to-face clinic. But a lot of people found it really, really good, because you get almost like a daily 15-minute really gentle class just to start your day off, just to get things moving, and it's a lot less effort than more traditional physio, basically. So if you have any questions about that, then I would love to answer them, and I may well be kind of reaching out to you about that as well. What time of the day is this class, please? Before we did it at 9 a.m, but people are working, so what we'd probably do is take a guess, or no, take a idea of what times work best for the group, and then kind of work around that basically. But generally, start of the day tends to work best. But say if it was best for everyone after work, then we could potentially do that as well. No worries. Well, the next time you see me, I won't have a mustache. I won't look as scary. But really, really good to connect with you all. And I hope you found today useful. And just reach out to us if you do have any other questions or anything that you'd like more specific help with. Okay. No worries. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too. Good to meet you.
Take care. Okay. Bye.